Is it good? Let's find out. First off, I just want to say thank you for being here. If you were here by random chance or decided to check us out, I appreciate you. Let's get into it, shall we? My history with Diablo, or well, the franchise in and of itself, started out with Diablo 2 as a teenager. Never got a chance to play Diablo 1 until after Diablo 2. Went back, played Diablo 1, went through it, enjoyed it. Played Diablo 2, again, obviously enjoyed it. Diablo 3, played it plenty of times, enjoyed it. Expansions galore, etc., etc. We've been a fan of the Diablo franchise for a long time. We've been a fan of ARPGs here for a very long time. Path of Exile, dabbled in it a little bit. Last Epoch, dabbled in it a little bit. But we always come back to Diablo, and what this video is actually about, Diablo 4. So, recently we got to play the Diablo beta. The closed beta that was out, unless you bought, a KFC sandwich or, pre-ordered the game, which is what we did. Yes, we're one of those evil pre-order people. I know. I love the franchise. I'm going to put stock into that. Anyway, we got a grand total of about 44 hours of the beta this weekend. That was about 40 hours on stream, which was on Twitch. So check out the description if you want to check us out on Twitch. Go check that out. And about roughly 4 hours off of stream. Like I said, grand total 44 hours of gameplay. I need sleep. I need food. I need to clean. But it was a great weekend, and we're going to do it again this coming weekend with the addition of Druid and Necromancer. So, with that out of the way, my initial thoughts on the game. First and foremost, let's go over classes. I started as a rogue, got my rogue to about mid-teens. Some friends logged in, decided to play with them a little bit, so I swapped up and made a sorceress. Decided to make a sorceress and play that. Sorceress was also a lot of fun, as was rogue, and eventually I got my sorceress to level 24, and again, some new friends decided, hey, let's play some hardcore, which, by the way, if you didn't know, that's all we really do is play hardcore. But ended up leveling all three classes eventually to 25. Of the three classes, I think I enjoyed Barbarian the most. And we're going to deep dive a little bit into the classes. Not super deep. I mean, we were only able to level to 25, so there's only so much you can do at a low level. Regardless, from what we did experience, Rogue has three different play styles that you can kind of dig in, right? So, of the three, we ended up playing ranged, but you can play melee, you can play ranged, or you can play a mix between melee and ranged. All three felt great. We landed on range just for fun, just to try it out. I think on this next coming weekend, we're going to try out melee builds a little bit. But Rogue felt fluid. You felt, depending on your build, you actually felt like an assassin. And what I mean by that was you could pinpoint out a boss or a champ pack or whatever, and you could just melt them so quickly on Rogue. It felt so good to just get in and do that damage to an enemy. Whereas a barbarian or a sorceress, they're more like AoE style, or well, the builds that we played, they were more AoE style than boss killers. But rogues had that murderous feeling about them and finesse. Like it was really good. It was fun to play rogue. Speaking on sorceress a little bit, sorceress was a lot of fun as well. Sorceress, you were all about, you had your spells like your hydras, your frozen orbs. A bunch of classics came back to Diablo 3. At first we dabbled in the ice tree a little bit because I was interested in the ice tree. Ended up going to the lightning tree for a little bit, which absolutely slaps at low level. We're going to dig into more of that later when we talk about level syncing and whatnot. But fire and lightning ended up being what I landed on towards the end with sorceress. Fire more so than anything else. And with barbarian, I will say that barbarian, although my favorite class, I struggled the most with barbarian. If you guys were watching us on stream, we were able to kill things. We were able to do just fine. And then my first hardcore death happened. And then my second hardcore death happened. And then my third. All barbarians. Barbarians were not clicking with me. And then finally they did. Very gear dependent, obviously. With the arsenal system. I didn't quite understand the arsenal system at first, but eventually we got to it and figured it out. All in all, though, classes were a lot of fun. I cannot wait till Necromancer and Druid become a thing. But moving on, we'll go through my basic thoughts on the story. Obviously, we weren't able to experience too much of it, but very grim, very dark, very good. Big step improvement, in my opinion, over Diablo 3. Even Diablo 2. I know. Everyone loves their baby, Diablo 2. I love it too. I really do. But, I mean, let's be real. Storytelling has evolved in the past 20 years. And Diablo 2, though good. Diablo 1, though good. I feel like Diablo 4 is headed into a very special direction. I could be proven wrong on that. We don't know much about the game yet. But from the beta, it is a firecracker of a start. Very nice start. Also, what I would like to mention is our playthrough that we did. Yes, we did 44 hours, but our playthrough, we were very thorough. We were going around, we gathered all the Lilith statues. We did a lot of exploration. We did a lot of things. So just take that into account when I go over the pros and cons. Now, speaking of pros and cons, here we go. We're going to kick off things with pros. All right? The pros, in my opinion, are a lot. And the cons are, well, there's a few as well, but there's more pros than cons here. First off, let's just touch on the aesthetics of the game. Absolutely gorgeous. There's no way else to put it. I mean, gory and gorgeous, you know. It's a very grimy game. The tone of the game is a lot different than what you'd see in Diablo 3. And it's more so what you would see in Diablo 2 Resurrected, though still just better. I don't really know how to explain it, but it was just better. At least for the first 25 levels. The one thing I really enjoyed about the aesthetics in Diablo 4 so far is the lights, the glitz, the glamour of like skills that you would see in Diablo. Even Diablo 2 had this to an extent, but Diablo 3 really had this, where you're just running around on your character doing greater with 5 billion or whatever it is these days, and you vomit skills left and right. That's all you're doing. You're just throwing skills here, throwing skills there, lightning, fire, all these. It's like a seizure waiting to happen. Regardless, the aesthetics, they have toned things down at least up to 25. We don't know if things change late game, obviously, but at least up to 25, things are very toned down, and it looks good. They tone things down. It looks more in line with a medieval dark fantasy setting than Fairyland fairy fighting. You know, look at my glitz and glamour and spells and stuff. I don't know. It just they toned it down to where it looks more realistic in a way. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, with that out of the way, the aesthetics, we're going to move on to the lore. And the lore so far, I touched on this in the intro, but the lore so far from what we've gotten, way grimier, way more edgier in a sense. And it just feels really good so far. We don't know much about it, but what we've been able to experience so far has been really good. Voice acting has been really good as well, honestly. I know a lot of people have been complaining about the voice acting in Diablo 4, but I thought it was really well done. I didn't see anything wrong with, or hear anything wrong with the voice acting. I thought it was very well done. The soundtrack itself, the music, everything fit where we were. Some of the boss fights, like the music, it wasn't overbearing, but it was still good, right? Dungeon music, everything was kind of in line. The world music was actually very superb, in my opinion. I enjoyed the soundtrack so far. Very good. The gameplay loop. Let's go over the gameplay loop right now. Side quests, for example. Everyone knows them. You see the explanation point. You go, you click, you go kill 10 things, you move on. Diablo 4 didn't really have that yet. But again, this is something that we're not going to really fully see until the release of the game. There were quests. I mean, one that comes to mind is, hey, I need these ghoul hearts. Go kill 50 ghouls. Which is fine. Honestly, it wasn't that bad. It didn't feel like a chore, but again, it was because the beta, it was new. New Diablo. I'm going to be hyped for whatever they throw at me, right? But putting objective glasses on and looking at it, this could be very repetitive eventually. We don't know yet. Some of the quests were really cool. Some of them even had their own little chains. Like you could do one quest and it would lead to another quest. It would lead to another quest. And these side quests had stories to them. Very well. I like that a lot. Like that's a good thing. But the kill quests, hopefully they don't get too much of a drag. Moving on, we have exploration. Exploration in the game is actually really big, really cool. Finding different dungeons all throughout the world. I believe there was like 23 to 28, something like that, in Act 1. Also, the Lilith statues. Finding the Lilith statues was a lot of fun. Obviously, you can look up a guide and just run around, boing, 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 knock them all out in one time and be done with it. It's a lot of fun to explore them and find different world events as you run around the world. I would highly recommend doing that instead of just looking at guides. Another thing I want to touch on is dungeons. Dungeons, again, for the most part, I did feel engaged when I was doing dungeons. The backtracking part that everyone's complaining about never really bothered me that much. I really don't mind kind of taking it slow. Even like the 50th time, it never bothered me. That's a personal thing. It's personal, like feeling, personal opinion, I guess. It never bothered me to take things at a slower rate. I know most ARPGs these days, it's like a light show. Things show up on the map. Things blow up on the map. You move on to the next part. Bing, bing, boom, bam. That's it. I'm not the biggest fan of that. And Diablo 4, as up to level 25, isn't really like that. There's enough density. That's another thing to take on. The mob density in the game. Chef's kiss. Feels good. Feels great. I love it. But the dungeons in the game, I don't know. I really liked and enjoyed like the aesthetics for one, the mob density for two, the backtracking, like I said, never bothered me. Oh, another thing that's really important, I don't see very many people talking about. Almost every dungeon that you're in, if you're into the lore, there's like some little side story to it. Like there's a little book you can find on a skeleton and a corpse somewhere. Like if you really look for it, you can find these things in it, and it really adds the immersion to the game. Now, I get it. It's an RPG, right? You're going to do that once, maybe twice, maybe thrice. And then you're going to be like, I'm not going to do this anymore because I want to kill, get loot, etc. But for now, it's definitely a positive for me. Moving on from dungeons, let's discuss, actually, how keyboard and mouse feels as opposed to controller. I really enjoyed trying out controller on Diablo 4. They did a great job. It feels good. There's definitely some issues with aiming, and maybe it's a skill issue. You know, maybe it's me. But with mouse and keyboard, obviously you can pinpoint things, right? Like you can see something across the screen. You're like, I'm going to click that and shoot that, right? Or I've seen some other videos where people are discussing things like leap and charge and how you only get half the distance with controller as opposed to being able to click off screen nearly and leap that entire distance versus just leaping, you know, very small distance. So that is some glaring issues that need to be fixed. But overall, I mean, you can probably, we all have this. Come on. I don't know if you can see that or not, but we all have the mark of the mouse, using the mouse too much. That means you have a shiny wrist, probably carpal tunnel, and it hurts if you do it like 12 plus hours a day. So being able to put that up and grab a controller and enjoy myself, kick my feet up, etc. Great. That's great. I love it. Moving on. Let's talk about the skill tree a little bit. The skill tree, in my opinion, is absolutely in a great place. The skill tree itself, I don't feel like it's overly complicated. That's a problem a lot of people have with Path of Exile, for instance. Like, they can't get into Path of Exile because there's just too much stuff, right? I get it. And I also understand I cannot stand the simplicity, well, the initial simplicity of something like Diablo 3, for instance. I know eventually Diablo 3 gets a little bit more complicated, but it's nothing like PoE, right? Diablo 4 seems to be a good mix between Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. The skill trees that they brought back is amazing. We obviously haven't been able to really toy at all with Paragon yet. I'm really excited to see what that brings to the table. But it's just the right amount of complicated, in my opinion, right now. You got your skills, you get your skills, they branches. Like, basically, you get a skill, there's an upgrade node, and then from that upgrade node, there is a split that you have to choose. You go one route or the other. And that feeling of choice is something that is great. I love it. I don't know. So far, the skill tree is amazing. I'm really excited to see what happens at a higher level. I really like the skill tree, though. Speaking of skills, respecking is super cheap, which is a great thing at first. I mean, apparently it's supposed to get really expensive later on, but as of right now, it's like anywhere from 20 gold to like 3,000 or something like that. It's really, it's nothing. I'm sure it goes up and gets maybe way more annoying later on, but for now, being able to respec on a whim and try something else out, that's great, especially for the beta, right? You're trying everything out. You want to see, you know, what flavors every class has, and that's a great thing. So thumbs up on that one for sure. Loot is another thing. The legendary drop rate, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes it felt good, sometimes it felt bad. That's just RNG, but it was really weird. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I would go from level 1 to 24, almost, you know, done with the class, and see maybe 1 or 2 uniques drop. Okay, that's an issue. I guess it's an RNG issue, but I've had that happen, and on that same note, I've popped the chest and seen 3 legendaries drop. Friends have too. So with that, it's kind of weird. Like, it's just RNG, I get it, but the legendary drop rate was really, it seesawed for us. And by us, I mean everyone that came into chat and talked to us, and, you know, we discussed things we were finding, etc. The whole ripping affixes and applying them to other items is great. I love that system. I think it's amazing. I think there's a lot that can go into that. But I think overall it is a positive thing. I think the loot is a good mix between Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. I think it's a good thing. But now we get into the bad. Now we're getting into the bad. All right, let's go over cons real quick. Cons, loot. I know, loot was on the positive side. Loot is on the negative side here. My only negative complaint about loot is, again, affixes, okay? Affixes are a good thing, and they're a bad thing for me. And it's probably just my playstyle that I don't like about this, but I can find, once I understand the min and the max roll of an item, and let's say I get a max roll of something, I can promise you, and a lot of other people think the exact same way, I can promise you, you will rip that item off, and you can only apply it one time before it's just gone, right? You can't re-rip the affix. I guarantee you, you will just sit and hoard that affix because you're always thinking in your brain, I'm going to find something better. I'm going to find something better. I'm going to keep this because I'm going to find something better to use it on. It's the Skyrim logic. Why do people end playing through Skyrim with 9 billion potions and whatnot? Because I'm going to use this later. I'm going to hang on to this for later, and you never end up using it. Like I said, it's probably my issue. It's a me issue, but that's a problem for me. More cons. Let's see. So dungeons as a con. I know. It was on positive. Now it's on the negative too. A lot of people are complaining about dungeons being repeating. I don't know. I don't have an issue with it, but I know a lot of people do, so I'm just going to throw it on a negative list too. Maybe the dungeons could just use a bit more flavor for people. My opinion, they're okay for now, but that's not to say that by the time we hit level 50, they're not going to get way over repetitive. If you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, it's going to get old eventually. So a little bit more flavor here and there, I think, would fix things a lot. Another thing I see a lot of people complaining about are the bosses of said dungeons. Bosses are definitely repeating. For the most part, the bosses that you run into are kind of just the same. If you've watched any of the beta playthrough from anyone, if you see a boss, you'll see like little markers on their health bar. Every marker represents, I'm guessing, a new phase because they start doing different things after the health bar hits that threshold. I don't know. Like all the bosses, they seem like they have an ad phase. They have a AoE phase, which is really annoying for melee, but you know, it's okay. Just things like that. There's always like ads, DPS, maybe more ads, vanishing act for a little bit, and then suddenly dodge AoEs and stuff like that. It's not super complicated. It is fun. I will say that. I do enjoy the active playstyle of a lot of the bosses, where if they're doing something, you need to react or you will die or you will get hit. Sometimes it's overwhelming. I'm thinking about the level 30 plus Stronghold. That boss, whoo, that was my first hardcore death actually, but live and learn kind of thing, right? A big complaint from me, is UI. So the UI, I feel like, explains things maybe one time, two times if you're lucky. And sometimes where things pop up that are trying to explain something to you while you're playing the game, they pop up in a place that's not right in your face kind of thing. And I think that's on purpose, but that's a negative for me because sometimes you miss things. I didn't understand that you could actually swap skill. I'm talking about Barbarian, for instance, the Arsenal system. I didn't know until a full day later that I could put a specific weapon on a specific skill to do different things. I understood the Arsenal system. Every time you used a skill, you would pull out a different weapon for that, right? I thought that was just how it worked. I didn't know you could customize and set it up to however you wanted it. Like if I wanted to use upheaval with a slicing weapon, for instance, or something, like you can do these things. I didn't know that. I don't know if the game explained it more than one time to me and I'm just smooth braining, but it is what it is. I feel like some of the items, especially like legendaries, I definitely feel like they should show you what you're losing and what you're gaining instead of just like the DPS. Like there could be a bit more on the UI, and that's just scratching the surface. There's some more areas of the UI that I feel like could be fleshed out and made a little bit better. But the last thing, and I feel like this is probably the biggest thing that I didn't like about the beta. It's a positive and a negative. It is a level sync issues. So, what do I mean by that? In hardcore especially, your friends are going to die. You're going to die, right? One big positive about dying and starting over, if your friend is level 20 and you die at level 20 with your friend lives, but you die, you start back at level 1, you can still continue doing dungeons with your friend, open world content with your friends. Some things are locked, right? Some things are 30 plus regardless, and you can't do that. But for the most part, a lot of the dungeons, you're level 1 killing things with your friend who's level 20, and it's all the same, right? A big weird problem we were finding was the lower level sorceresses in particular were killing things as quick, if not faster, than we were at max level. I don't know the numbers. I don't know how it syncs up, but it's really weird to be struggling with a champ pack at level 25 because it's synced to 25 for you, and then a level 7 sorceress who maybe she has a strong weapon for her level comes in and melts the whole room, like, while you're just like, but I'm 25 and you're 7. What happened? I think I understand the issue is, you know, everything's scaled to your level, HP wise, defense stats wise, etc. But if you have like something really strong for that level, you can just melt the pack. Like you can melt that for that level. Really, really weird. Really, really weird. Again, I don't know how they could fix that. I just don't know. That was a really weird situation. Well, yeah, that's my cons list for Diablo 4 open beta so far. Very excited for the Necromancer and Druid coming up on Friday. Definitely going to be living on Twitch again. So if you guys want to check that out, come on by on Friday. Check us out, twitch.tv/fire_raven. We will put the link in the description below. You can go check that out. I guess we could talk about my favorite part of the open beta. My most enjoyable part of the beta. Spoilers, in case you don't want to know, it involves a character from the Diablo franchise making a return. The Butcher. Now, we're going to play a few video clips up here of the Butcher. We ran into the Butcher about 3 times. One time, the first time we ran into the Butcher, he was slain. The second time, I was slain. The third time, he got away. He like just vanished. It didn't make any sense. He just vanished. But the Butcher is back. The Butcher is terrifying. The Butcher will crack heads. It's not your Diablo 3 Butcher, okay? For those of you old heads out there, maybe you young folks that went back and played Diablo 1, the Butcher was terrifying. He was not an easy first, hey, I'm the first boss, come slay me kind of boss. No, the Butcher made you want to quit the game because he would chase you down and kill you. Okay? Diablo 2, the Butcher got skipped. Basically was the Smith or whatever. It's kind of the same kind of look. But the Butcher was gone from Diablo 2. Diablo 3 brought the Butcher back, but it was so weak. I mean, don't get me wrong. In the Inferno days of Diablo 3, the Butcher was a little scary, but overall, the Butcher was kind of a joke, right? Diablo 4 Butcher, he ain't playing. He ain't playing. That was probably my most favorite part of the beta. I can't wait. I hope there's more things like that, like returning, enemies that are just like monsters. How we think the Butcher works, it's like a low % chance that he may be in any dungeon that you're in. Any dungeon. So if you're playing hardcore, there's always a sense of you're just nervous. You really are. You're just scared when you're playing hardcore because if the Butcher is around the corner, he can and will kill you in no time. He's hard to get away from. I absolutely love it. It keeps you on your toes, keeps you tense, and it's just it was such a surprise. And I just absolutely love that. That was my favorite part of the beta. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. Hopefully it gave you some insight on the Diablo 4, like how things are going. I'll post another video discussing all the classes in depth over this coming weekend. We'll talk about some of my more fun builds, some of what I think's OP, things like that. Obviously Necromancer and Druid, two classes I'm looking forward to coming up. We're going to be going over all of that stuff. So that'll do it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Catch you on the flip side. Peace.